The mystery surrounding the Brown University and MIT murders, especially of Professor Nuno Lauriero, remains to be solved. News viewers, investigators, and reporters alike got nearly nothing but the appearance of outrageous stupidity and incompetence from Rhode Island, Boston, and even FBI officials reporting the crimes. Outraged by what seemed to me to be a deadly farce and gross, despicable cover-up, I researched to make sense of the crimes and mysterious motives of the claimed killer, Claudio Neves Valente. In this report, I'm going to take you through my revelations, new facts, and cutting-edge research and developments in Professor Lauriero and his wife's life at MIT and big biotech. This best explains why Valente and his suspected handlers might want Lauriero dead. Here you will consider the cover-up, the black-op, and fascinating related science impacting and threatening our lives in this age of AI, robotics, and the gods of science, along with compelling new evidence of the apparent organized crime and obvious conspiracy, encouraging further discovery, your awareness, and law enforcement.
After a nearly week-long manhunt that left the nation on edge, police have identified the shooting suspect who killed two Brown University students and an MIT professor. Authorities were able to follow his trail thanks to the help of a homeless hero who provided them with key information, which led them to a storage facility in Salem, New Hampshire. There, they found 48-year-old Claudio Neves Valente dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
So heavily suppressed in the media is Nuno's wife, and how she plays into Moderna and the mRNA vaccines that you're raising the issue on now. So while Marty McCary and others, Dr. Malone, for example, likewise, in high-level Trump administration positions are finally coming out and saying we have serious reservations and problems with the mRNA vaccinations, causing toxic reactions, causing deaths. Above anyone else following this news and these grave concerns, Nuno and Margarita would be most disturbed. At that time now, you got to understand that it's intimately connected to the murder of Nuno Lauriero, and I base that claim on the following intelligence that has been censored, suppressed. You can't find it pretty much anywhere. The only way that I was able to find it was literally going into the scientific literature and finding out what Mrs. Lauriero, Margarita is her name, what she was involved in. So let me move through this with you, okay? Right. So as background, Nuno Lauriero, who was shot and killed the other day, was a professor of nuclear science and engineering and physics at MIT. He served in primarily plasma science and the fusion center at MIT. His primary research involved plasma physics and the generation of magnetic fields in the universe. Now think about the energy cleaner. Think about what we've been talking about on this show for how many years, especially with 528 frequency, the electromechanics, electromagnetics, and think about also where we have gone, where I have exposed the whole concept of related to the mRNA vaccinations and the Trump administration's Project Stargate. So this is the most advanced research and development in the entire field of nano, neuro, bio, electronics that supersedes even the electricity aspects of chemistry. It goes into quantum mechanics and plasmonics, how most recent research shows that plasma, which is spirit, virtually it's energy, it's spirit, ether, how pure 24-karat gold has a plasmonic resonant energy at the surface of specifically 528 nanometers. That's that green color behind me that you see in the aurora borealis. It's the heart of nature. At any rate, this is where this technology, as I have talked about, has gone. Now, on December the 15th, 2025, Nuno Lauriero was fatally shot at his home in Brookline, Massachusetts. Official reports mention he is survived by his wife and 3 children. Never mentions her name, never addresses what she does, or even any really affiliation with MIT to the level that you would think that they would. They're secreting that. The question then, red flag raises, why? This is a woman in mourning. She's lost her husband. And what's interesting is that her line of work is intimately connected with Moderna and Robert Langer in the Langer labs that developed the mRNA vaccinations that you're questioning today about public policy.
Right.
So Margarita Lauriero, now interesting, she goes by a couple different names. She has aliases. She
Really?
goes by the name of AML Piloto. Her full name used in some scientific publications include, quote, Anna Margarita Lauriero Piloto Carquera, end quote. That's from scientific literature that I'll mention in a minute.
Okay.
Nuno and Margarita are often cited together in academic contexts due to their prominent roles at MIT. Now, according to Grok, I'm going to quote Grok now from yesterday. Quote, the shared surname, shared national origin, Portugal, and concurrent high-level research roles at the same university, coupled with Nuno's public acknowledgement of moving to MIT with his family, strongly suggests they were family members, likely spouses, end quote. Margarita published significant biological research in collaboration, as I mentioned, with Robert Langer, the Robert Langer Lab at MIT, the key developer of the Moderna mRNA vaccinations and foundational developments for Pfizer and BioNTech. In fact, they're still engaged in litigations over patent rights over the technology. Margarita Lauriero's research at the Langer Lab, tied with Robert Langer, focuses on the intersection of biology and drug delivery, with a specific emphasis on the metabolic mechanisms of diseases. Now, here you go. You start to get into the Project Stargate, where Larry Ellison announced with the Trump administration that they're going to be advancing the nano-neuro-bioelectronics that's AI administered that allows early cancer detection, as well as within 48 hours have a cancer vaccine, a drug delivered specifically for your type of cancer. That's Project Stargate.
It's my honor to welcome 3 of the world's leading technology CEOs. And in the case of Larry Ellison, it's well beyond technology, it's sort of CEO of everything.
AI holds incredible promise for all of us, for every American. We've actually been working with OpenAI for a while and with Masa for a while. The data centers are actually under construction. The first of them are under construction in Texas. Each building's 500,000 square feet. There are 10 buildings currently being built, but that will expand to 20 and other locations beyond the Abilene location, which is our first location. The kind of applications that we're building, to give you an idea, maybe the most charismatic and the one that I think touches us all is electronic health records, not just maintaining electronic health records, but by looking at electronic health records, understanding the condition of doctors, better understanding the condition of their patients. Cancer diagnosis using AI has the promise of just being a simple blood test. Then beyond that, once we gene sequence that cancer tumor, you can then vaccinate the person, design a vaccine for every individual person to vaccinate them against that cancer. And you can make that vaccine, that mRNA vaccine, you can make that robotically, again using AI, in about 48 hours. So imagine early cancer detection, the development of a cancer vaccine for your particular cancer aimed at you, and have that vaccine available in 48 hours. This is the promise of AI and the promise of the future.
Now, Margarita Lauriero's research intimately at the Robert Langer Labs is intimately connected with that type of a technology. It also goes into what we've been talking about, the great warning, the great suppression, the great censored graphene issue. Because in order to fuel that wireless technology that permits the brain cloud connection from the injection of neuro bioelectronic devices, you need to have an energy supplier, a converter from body heat or ambient energy, ambient plasmonic energy. You have to have that conversion, and that's what the graphene has been used for, and that's what's being censored heavily. In fact, the officials are still standing by their claim that the vaccinations and the dental anesthetics do not contain graphene. It's still experimental. Well, it's black op. John, you and I both know you're involved in research and military as well as investigative journalism and reporting as a law enforcement official. You know that the military is approximately 50 years ahead of consumer products.
That's right.
So this is all black op. And Margarita's name being censored out of this is a red flag within that context of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Programs Agency, as well as the MIT Circle. Now, again, just on a note of aside, I've published numerous articles. In fact, I have a book that I sent over to Senator Johnson and others in Congress because they're requesting whistleblowers come forth. I published the entire racketeering enterprise surrounding Dr. Fauci, intimately connected with the laboratory creation of COVID-19. And so that's available currently on medicalveritas.org. medicalveritas.org. The main banner there will link you directly to that publication that I've submitted to the United States Congress and the Department of Justice. So that goes into the background, how all of this is virtually a black op, secreted operation. For what purpose? By which Bill Gates would be a co-investor with Jeffrey Epstein, going to Harvard, going to MIT. And again, you can remember what I shared numerous times on this show, how Charles Lieber, the Charles Lieber Lab, who was working intimately with Robert Langer at MIT, the Harvard Charles Lieber Lab working with MIT's Robert Langer and apparently Margarita Lauriero, how Charles Lieber was taken out. So here you have what I would consider certain evidence of a racketeering enterprise.
It's not about sex, idiots. It's about profitable population control.
That are involved in Chinese espionage operations and the most advanced neuro bioelectronics for population control, population manipulation via vaccination, via the injection of these devices that highlight graphene and the bioenergetics associated with the plasmonics. Now we're going to come back to Nuno's work as the spouse of Margarita. So her key research involves mitochondrial inhibitors. She has investigated how specific molecules can inhibit mitochondrial processes. And by the way, mitochondria are also capable of interfering or actually producing DNA and actually are involved in DNA. So when you have mRNA interfering with mitochondrial functions, you also have this sudden risk factor associated with mRNA vaccination injections that nobody seems to be talking about. Officials are simply claiming, oh no, it doesn't really have an effect on DNA. Hogwash. Your DNA is actually outputting more of the bioweapon, the spike protein bioweapon, when you have injected yourself with mRNA vaccination that influences DNA protein production. Basically, you have antigenic production. You have basically the spike protein antigen, which is the bioweapon, which is causing all the symptoms of the cancers and the long COVID and many other problems. That's associated with what's being suppressed also. So this research that Margarita was involved in is notably published in Science Advances in 2024. So this is relatively recent that they're giving you some indication in the current peer-reviewed scientific literature of what they're engaged in. Lipid signaling. You remember every one of our shows early on, we were talking about the hydrogels, the new technology by which the graphene as well as the mRNA is delivered is via the lipid hydrogel component that they've invented. And they invented that again at the Lieber lab at Harvard and the Langer lab at MIT in collaboration. And they shipped that technology over to Wuhan, my most recent report to Congress and Department of Justice goes into detail where that money that Fauci administered beyond the EcoHealth Alliance connection with Dr. Daszak. It went to China also. What was going on in Wuhan and affiliated labs deals with likewise this hydrogel delivery component for the vaccination injections and then literally population management data mining technology within the human body in real time. That's, again, Project Stargate. So lipid signaling was her principal work in terms of this hydrogel signaling in cellular regulation, a critical area for developing targeted drug delivery systems, exactly like Larry Ellison was saying that the Project Stargate is involved in. Much of her work is involved in this lipid-based nano formulations, the lipid nanoparticles, the hydrogels for targeted drug delivery. This is central to mRNA vaccine technology and the Trump administration's Project Stargate. So again, you have to think about what Elon Musk has been saying in his lawsuits against OpenAI and Sam Altman, saying that this technology by which artificial intelligence can actually intertwine and can regulate this type of medical technology represents the greatest threat to civilization and humanity's extinction. That's in Elon Musk's lawsuit. He calls it the wrong hands. These people are in the wrong hands. Yesterday in Congress, they were having meetings about what the risks are for AI, and they're just basically covering up all of the information that I'm giving you right now. They're literally evading all of the potential risks. And my consideration and concern goes beyond medicine, goes beyond chemistry. It goes into spirituality, as you well know, because when you're dealing with quantum level technology, you're dealing with plasma, ether, spirit, energy. You're dealing virtually with your connection with God. And 528 frequency, that's what I've been talking about for years on your show now. So the development, Margarita's also involved in the development of an immunosensor. Get this. This is where the technology that Larry Ellison was talking about. Once you get injected, how is it that the nanobioelectronics can sense what's going on, even identify cancer cells and cancer markers in your body in real time? Margarita is the principal researcher advancing that understanding and that technology. The development of immunosensors based on quantum dots with different emissions for the detection of cancer biomarkers. That's her most recent paper and her actually most recent public presentation, scientific presentation in Portugal. She did that in 2024, and it's titled The Development of an Immunosensor Based on Quantum Dots with Different Emissions for the Detection of Cancer Biomarkers. For those who are not familiar with quantum dots and that type of technology, it's a semiconductive nanocrystal technology. The particles are the size of nano. They engage the nano level of optical and as well as electronic technology, that it differs from larger particles, and it involves quantum. Again, when you're dealing with quantum, you're dealing with virtually the spiritual realm. And they're central topics currently in nanotechnology and material science. When a quantum dot is illuminated by ultraviolet light, for example, an electron, now I've been talking about electrons and the foundation of all health and health science, actually all of life, all of the universe, the way that creator creates and administers the universe, including your own human body, your Holy Spirit-filled temple, is electronics, and the negatively charged electrons are central to that. Alkalizing electrons, the whole concept of immune boosting via antioxidants deals with electrons. If you have negatively charged electrons in your body, it actually enhances tremendously, like glutathione production. It enhances tremendously your health. So this whole matter of quantum dot technology engages these nano level electronic devices. And so this process corresponds to what they call the transition of an electron from a valence band to a conduction band. What happens is that when the excited electron drops back into a valence band, it releases light energy, and you can actually view that on a screen. You can take a picture of that, and that's what gives the information, the medical intelligence as to what's going on at this nano level. So this is what Margarita, as well as her husband now, who's been shot and killed, what they were involved in at MIT. Metabolic signaling. Margarita has published high impact studies in quantum dots and in the science and the scientific advances publications focusing on mitochondrial. Now, mitochondria is the energy sources of the cells, as well as it's connected to DNA. So mitochondrial inhibitors and how lipid signaling regulates cellular functions. Now, isn't that what you started to question me about today? You have Marty McCary and all of these, dudes who are in government currently, they say, oh, well, we need to give people warning notices about the risks of vaccinations versus, oh, we're not going to tell people the truth about that. So this is intimately connected to that technology. And basically the development of specialized drugs and vaccines that deliver this biotechnology. That's what Margarita and her husband were involved in. So let's get into Nuno. Why was he killed? It's got to have something to do with what we're talking about. What his work, his principal work, which is intimately connected with his wife's work, his work was primarily in cold plasma, in neuroscience. Cold plasma in neuroscience. You have hot plasma, you have cold plasma, and basically cold plasma is an artificial engineered state generated by devices such as plasma jets or dielectric barrier discharges, and it's applied in plasma medicine. This is a new field. It's called plasma medicine. And this emerging research shows it's extremely promising with regard to the therapeutic effects on nerve cells. Now, John, you're asking about the energy cleaner and 528 frequency component of the energy cleaner and how beneficial that is. And I've been saying, yes, it's terrific. In fact, all of the people who have the autistic spectrum disorders or the children should be sleeping on the energy cleaner. because it resonates this 528. Now, why? Because the nerve cells that are damaged in the brain are susceptible to that influence, that beneficial influence. Now, isn't it interesting that this particular research in cold plasma that Nuno Lariero was engaged in and was the top man in the field at MIT, virtually the world? What does it do? What does this cold plasma do under certain circumstances medically? It stimulates neuronal proliferation, axon formation, neurite outgrowth in various models, including cancer cells. It promotes neural, get this, stem cell differentiation into neurons. How many shows have I already done with you that have talked about the benefits of the energy cleaner or the 528 frequency therapeutics dealing with stimulating stem cells? Undifferentiated cells can be brought into differentiating into whatever cell that you need in order to restore your tissues as well as your health. You have this stem cell differentiation by energetics, by frequency messaging. And that is exactly what they're now doing here at the most advanced levels of the technology in not only the vaccinology arena at Moderna, but also at MIT, as well as in Portugal, as where Margarita has lectured recently. So this aids in nerve regeneration after injury. Astrocyte, that's a neurological cell, the astrocyte regrowth, and potential neuromodulation in conditions like neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's. So here you go, intertwining what we've been saying is available to us by the grace of God in natural medicine, low cost, highly effective, wonderful technologies, heavily suppressed by mainstream media, mainstream big pharma, even our own government. You know, they're not embracing these technologies. So you have to understand this is where we, the people, must go to recognize what's going on. And we're law enforcers now, based on this program today and all of this evidence. The law enforcers must go to engage in this understanding that this guy was targeted specifically to kill him. For what reason, we don't know yet. But it has got to be intertwined with what's taking place, as I've mentioned, in the corruption. They took out, in my opinion, I concluded the Langer Lab group, which is involved with DARPA, which is involved with Bill Gates, which is real deep state and the most advanced biotechnologies for human manipulations and population control. They took out Charles Lieber. And Lieber is currently in China as China's top man in the field. Officials have never come to terms with what I'm saying. The FBI lied about that. The FBI lied about what Lieber was doing because it was intimately connected with what we're talking about. They said, oh no, he was talking about car batteries. He was actually engaged with shipping over to China and Wuhan car battery technology. Hogwash. This is human battery, human vehicles, not electronic EVs. No, this was what they censored. So Nuno, his work in cold plasma and its role in primarily regenerative medicine, that's what we're looking at. In biological solutions, the applications here are just amazing. They're mind-blowing. And it's obvious that this has got to be a black op because they've censored everything else. They've even censored Margarita's name. It's a black op. And it's a DARPA proprietary. It links here directly to this whole concept of plasma-derived methods that ultimately should not be that confusing. They've made it confusing. It involves like what they're doing by generating this plasma, this cold plasma, to have these benefits in medicine. What they're actually doing is what we've been talking about. You know, you talked about at the beginning of the show, you recommended G. Edward Griffin's book, World Without Cancer. If you look at that book, if you look at all of my work, you look at the most advanced researchers in the entire field, Robert Young's work, who was incarcerated for basically telling the truth, it's all negatively charged electrons and it's all antioxidants. And if you start to look at what I've been taking, one of the things I took, I mentioned on this show, to overcome my cancer, to defeat cancer, I took the chlorine dioxide. Chlorine dioxide. What is that? Trump gets slammed for allegedly recommending bleach. Hogwash, a total distortion to cover up the simplicity of how negatively charged electrons that they're producing in cold plasma now, how this is actually facilitating the body to do what it normally does in response to acidifying body chemistry. You have negatively charged electrons that are alkalizing, that are antioxidants. So your antioxidants, such as vitamin D, sunshine, vitamin C, they're antioxidants. They boost natural immunity. This whole concept of glutathione, it's likewise regulated by the amount of negatively charged, alkalizing, antioxidating electrons that you're putting into your body, that suddenly now you miraculously gain the energy, and I call it the Love 528 frequency. It's virtually the energy of God, God's love, God's sustenance. It's fundamental to life. It's what we're breathing. The color behind me is 528. What color is that? Green grass. Why is grass green? Because it's chlorophyll. What does chlorophyll do? Gives us negatively charged oxygen. What is oxygen doing to us? Bringing us life. It's rejuvenating us. That's how simple this whole thing is that they've made so complex, and they have got made now in this whole concept of MIT's physics department. Plasma-derived methods involve, for example, reactive species modeling. That's what Nuno Lauriello was involved in modeling in terms of its computerization in this nanomedicine. Graphene nanostructures in bioelectronics, leveraging plasmonic enhancements, computational, electromedicine modeling. That's what they killed.
Investigators have since revealed that Claudio Neves Valente was a Portuguese national and a former Brown University graduate student. He also studied in Lisbon with murdered MIT nuclear science professor Nuno Loureiro between 1995 and 2000. The nature of their relationship remains unclear, nor has it been revealed if they stayed in contact. Valente received lawful permanent resident status in September 2017.
Just before Fauci announced foreknowledge that the incoming Trump administration was to face an unprecedented plague, COVID-19.
There will be a surprise outbreak, and I hope by the end of my relatively short presentation, you will understand why history, the history of the last 32 years that I've been the director of NIAID, will tell the next administration that there's no doubt in anyone's mind that they will be faced with the challenges.
Assuring massive profits by Moderna and Robert Langer's co-investors, including Gates and Epstein's cohorts in crimes. In conclusion, it is unreasonable to presume these murders were anything other than a military-industrial black op, concealing risks and evidence of wrongdoing in Project Stargate and plasma medicine, centered at MIT and Moderna, as evidenced by, number one, the gross censorship of Margarita Loureiro's involvement with MIT's Langer Labs, Moderna, and the entire mRNA vaccine covert COVID racketeering enterprise. Number two, Valente's continuous contact with Nuno between the United States and Portugal for 2 decades. Number three, Valente's lacking footprint in the business community and social media, despite his profound academic scholarship, even exceeding Nuno's expertise in plasma science. Number four, Valente's dropping out at Brown's physics program to vanish academically strongly suggests continuing covert scientific agency. Number five, obvious planning for the delayed, well-financed murders, despite no known employment nor Portuguese family financing. Number six, use of encrypted telephones registered to aliases concealed by authorities. Number 7, use of a false residential address in Miami and likely elsewhere. And number 8, the odd demise in a vacant storage room from claimed self-inflicted gunshot wounds within an hour after Loureiro's murder. Had Valente completed his murder spree and desired to end his own life by reason of jealousy and vendetta against Loureiro, then why drive to New Hampshire to kill himself? The only reasonable explanation is a concealed motive, further obfuscating what the Trump administration's Project Stargate is really about. Did Nuno suddenly awaken to the deadly damage his and Margarita's work in mRNA vaccinology, Project Stargate, and plasma medicine was causing? Did he object to their subservience to the deep state? Was this the motive for his murderous silencing? I'm Dr. Leonard Horowitz. Thanks for viewing and sharing this video.